Many years ago, I came across a few lines in a book that I connected with. They were, "It's easy to judge, but you never know another person's heart, what gives them strength and what breaks them down." I have learned to listen more and speak less. The result has been eye-opening conversations and inspirational moments that I have shared with you right here. So welcome back to my channel. If you like the interviews that I've been sharing with you for the last couple of years, please do subscribe. Just click the button. It is Crystal One-on-One. I am Crystal and we are on location at Le Chateau, Brasserie Belge at Quality Hill Boutique Mall. And today I have someone who is very comfortable with his camera. He's actually sitting with it right now. I think he's itching. He wants to take pictures even before we speak. Now we have a writer, photographer, director of Kampala Express page, should I say, Timothy Kalyegira. I have a feeling like you kind of look at life more through a lens than you do every day because you always seem to be looking for something to capture.
I've always looked at life, well, as a teenager, since through the sound of music, pop music, classical music, and then of course at magazines, Time magazine, Newsweek, and then in the 1990s through the pen, writing for various newspapers in the country. And then lately, for the last 1 decade, since 2009, increasingly through the lens. Lots of reasons I guess we can cover during the interview, but reinforced by the rise of social media and the fact that the photo is the central menu. It's a breakfast. It's the tea and bread of social media.
Yes.
And so I said, this medium that's becoming central to our lives, the driving force in commerce, in fashion, retail, in everything, is one I just must take interest in. I can no longer remain at the amateur stage. So that then developed this interest in photography.
Okay.
It's a very recent, hardcore interest. Really? Apart from the generic interest that many of us have, but the much more dedicated one, the one that goes a technical area, you're talking about maybe 2013. It's just recent.
2013, so that's about
it's just 6 years ago. It's just a recent thing, yes.
Okay, because I see that, much as you're a storyteller, you've actually been deliberately documenting Uganda and Ugandans. I don't know if people even realize that.
They many sense it, see it, but can't quite find the articulation to put it in the way you have, or at least the understanding of all this. They just know he's doing something which might be useful. Some of it seems like pointless today, but one day we shall look back and this starts mattering. So a photo is really just an addition, more like an afterthought, but the main story is this that happened. Now, the arrival of the smartphone, the arrival of Instagram, Snapchat, Pinterest, especially, the fact that 75% of all original content uploaded on Facebook is photos. 75%, a whole 3/4.
Wow.
And the fact that every time you notice that camera launches, be it the iPhone or Samsung or any, there's always this emphasis on the camera.
Yes,
we have this
camera quality.
Yes. So that very fact itself tells you they know that the main use of cameras, phones today is the camera first, and then the texting and everything else later. So I decided, why not just as well make the most of this, take it away from the casual to the professional. In everything, I'm always leaning toward the professional rather than the amateur, however casual it is. Even the most casual thing called social media, I began fussing when I got on Facebook 5 years ago about grammar, punctuation and all this. Yes, people wailed at me and said, yeah, but this is social media. I say, yes, but still, why not? If you're going to say my, if you can say MA, might as well say MY, it's the same 2 letters.
Thank you. If you're going to say I'm, why not just put the little instead of
the little
am?
things, yes, exactly. In the beginning, it's going to be like, like the Chinese factory production, very low quality merchandise for the world in general. But as time goes by, as I asked some people 3 weeks ago on Facebook, I said, fine. But what happens when the diligence start getting noticed? If everyone is going to be casual on social media, what happens when some emerge who are not casual, who bother with writing, with graphics, with video quality, with everything, basically put effort put in at the best? those are the ones, those are the future influencers, those are the stars.
Yes,
Basically,
you
pyramid
you
of
see
human
their
nature,
followings,
exactly.
you see their
Exactly.
numbers,
Yes.
and
No,
you see businesses increasingly
exactly.
seeing the importance.
Yes, because if 20 of us are just going to casual picture, what do you do about the one who put out the best of content? He or she gets noticed. So that's starting to pull away. It started with the Kardashians and the others who took this away from the casual thing and then began the branding and then onward and onward. And now when you go all over the internet, there are these dedicated influencer marketing groups. Essentially, they've become like modeling agencies, matching influencers with brands and all this. So the same
It's
old
interesting.
story.
It's
The
a
cream,
completely new space.
exactly. And in that new space, as in every new space, the cream always rises to the top.
True. It's so interesting. Just this morning, I was watching a clip from David Bowie, I think from back in the 90s, and he was talking about the internet and how people are not ready for it. They don't understand how it is going to become our lives, both good and bad. And people were not ready for it. And if you look at the world today, I mean, even just we've been talking, I mean, Mental Health Week has just passed, and you're talking about, you know, also how just social media, the attraction of the internet and everything that's available on it can influence your moods, your emotions, your self-esteem. I mean, it's so integral to who we are now.
It's now electricity. It's the telephone companies. It's now mainstream all over.
Have you ever felt like you needed to take a break, like from social media?
I wish I could take a break from the readers' comments on feedback on social media. But then there are two sides of, let's say, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and whichever account. Especially, okay, let's just say Facebook, the largest of them. There is the user-generated content, the one we're familiar with, where we post on the ha ha ha, this is me at a party.
Yeah.
But the most interesting part, especially if you have a professional, the business page, that page different from the profile, is the back-end data. That's just a gold mine. And for that reason alone, by the way, even if Facebook introduced a $20 subscription fee per year, I would pay that. Even if they made it 50, I would pay.
Really?
Exactly, yes.
Wow.
People don't realize this. It is the back-end data. It's not our childish comments and all this, you know, crooked videos and casual pictures, but it is the trends that show you the towns from which your followers come in order. Everything mapped.
And that's what's amazing. You can actually track all that information.
Everything. Even at the front end, you know, you post a picture with comments, the views of the picture, the post, then the number of responses and the responses to the responses and all this. It's no longer like in the 90s, 80s, 70s when it was just guesswork. Put out a picture in, you know, the Daily Nation, Nairobi, the New York Times, and then just roughly guess where people might go with this. Every single detail of it is tracked for you. There's no more guesswork. There's no more hype. You can no longer say you're the number one A, B, C, D. We see the number one. Then beyond the nominal numbers, there's also the continuous following and all this. So it's just a world of marvel. So to answer your question, it's the positives of social media, especially the professional and the data side of it, outweigh the pettiness and the trolling by an order of, let's say, 8 to 2.
Okay.
So it's the place to be.
What kind of child were you?
I was, if you mean in terms of interest, okay, I definitely, obviously was like many people, this, you know, stubborn child and all that.
Ooh.
But then at the
Were
age
you
of,
quiet? Were you?
I was, well, stubborn really is quiet, but I guess, I have no knowledge of who I was now since, well, I wasn't there to record my days and moments. But I noticed that at the age of 10, we had some neighbors in Entebbe. We lived just across the road from the airport.
Were you born in Entebbe?
No, I was born in Kalia as a child, but we lived for many years in Entebbe. My dad was a vet. So we had some neighbors who had the Guinness Book of Records of 1968. I remember the facts of the Guinness Book of Records. You know, the world's largest plane, the Boeing 747, the world's tallest building, the world's...
You remember that up to today?
To this day.
So you went through it again and again?
Yes, and that thought, I'd never been exposed to the world, the dimensions of the world, richest pop group, largest plane, fastest car, highest, the sense of records, you know, the Guinness Book of Records. And I remember from that time, I developed this fascination with data records, which is still me to this day. And then also, in 1978, still as a child, the Boney M album with the LP with 90 Flight to Venus. the one with the brown girl in the ring, Rivers of Babylon, and Rasputin, Painter Man came on. And I don't know if you've seen the artwork. You can have a look at it on Google. That the background, of course, was outer space, and you know, the Boney M band. That album, hanging on the rope, and all this. Just the whole fascination. Well, apart from we'd had all the Daddy Cools and the other songs, Sunny, but this album with that sense of a faraway world, outer space, with my favorite pop group in those days, it was ABBA, Boney M, and the Bee Gees and whatnot. But this sight of space and the whole concept of night flight to Venus, then develop a secondary interest, which is in, I guess, outer space, time, space, the outer world, eternity, and things like that to this day. Lesson being, that child you see at the age of 7, 6, 5, 4 is the adult just waiting for time to go by. This child that says, "Mommy, I want to be a singer," might be incoherent, might be, you know, childish talk, but that's who we are. I'm now just convinced.
Really?
Maybe, yes. I
Because
think
most people say, I mean, when you're a child, today you want to be this, tomorrow you want to be that.
it's something I discussed with my sister, Monica. I remember December 2015. So we discussed this by text around Christmas, saying, what's the role of a parent in life? Is it to direct the child to what the parents think the child should be?
No.
Or are we born, which I think we are, kind of like we come pre-programmed in this world, and the role of a good parent is just to be the pole, the structure that allows the ivy to climb. Basically,
So to identify and nurture.
yes, essentially what parents are is just a support role for the children who have come pre-programmed in this world, and your role as a parent is just to be, as I say, is to be the bars, the pillars, the trees on which these climbing trees basically thrive. That's what I'm convinced about. Go back through many people's stories, you know, speak to your relatives. There's always an auntie who says, but that's the way you always were. You know, an auntie hears you on radio or TV or whichever and just says, yeah, but I remember you used to hold the mic. You can't remember this, but you used to come out and, you know, bother us. In other words, we are who we are right from the beginning.
You know what? One of my aunts said the same thing to me. Said I used to pull out a blanket and make a stage and grab something as a microphone and set up all my toys and okay. There's
always,
something
you know,
there.
yes, you think it's you. You know, you come out on Twitter and begin saying, you know, I've always dreamt of being ABC. And your uncle just look at you and says, but it's not, you know, it's like I've just decided to be ABC. Your uncle says, but that's what you always were. Your mom just says, but that's just who you were. You used to climb our tables and come out and start boring us. Adults are conversing and there you are trying, you know, sing before them, or let's say read the newspapers or medical books before your age and whatnot. So that's what we are. We are who we are right from day one. And I think society and our parents, with the best of intentions, frustrates that person that we are. That's just what it is.
That's true. Even the syllabus education system, it's trying to streamline, and you have to let people just flourish.
Which
So
is
at
what-
the age of 10, your mind was open.
This person, I remember with children, when the Iranian Revolution took place in 1979, these demonstrations in Iran, all the complexity of the names, I remember, you know, as in P6, the mullahs, the ayatollahs, the Shah, the US Embassy under siege, and all these complicated names, you know, for a child, just so confusing, but I remember the fascination. And then when the 1980 election in the US was taking place, I just finished P7, so I was arguing with an uncle. I was telling the uncle, there's a man called John Anderson I thought was going to win. My uncle said, no, it's going to be Ronald Reagan. I said, no, but look at the graphs. There's a graph in Newsweek that showed who had fundraised the most. So I said, but he was fundraising, of course, as a child. I thought he's going to win because he has
more money.
Of course, my uncle said, no, but opinion poll is going to be Reagan, whatnot. So in other words, this absorption of information, this avid reading, this love for detailed information, to no end, to this very moment, is still with me. As in right now, I am up to the minute, up to, as in the last 24 hours with Instagram, Facebook and all this, I even know what they're planning in 2020. Everything, minute detail, all the contracts of influencer marketing, the considerations, the difference between the pro influencer, 1 million followers and above, and the micro influencer.
I don't know why, but I think you must have driven your teachers mad in class then. Were you always asking questions? Were you always asking questions?
Well, because of the structure, as you said a few minutes ago, of society that requires you to, face the blackboard and answer this question. I wasn't good in maths, like many people who lean toward the arts. So of course, I didn't have the confidence to be that, confident child. But I was always very good at the thing that I'm just telling you about in the general paper. In our days, it was general paper. I remember PLE in Entebbe was the best in Entebbe in English, and
Hey, these are things to be proud of.
yes, I'm just saying that basically very little changes. It's amazing how eventually we just become who we were right from the beginning.
So where were you in school for primary?
Lake Victoria School in Entebbe.
Okay, and then secondary?
Entebbe Secondary School briefly. There was Nyakasura School for O-level. Then the notorious and lovable Namasagali College for A-level. Then Makerere University. The true me comes out to the maximum. No surprise in Namasagali. The dancing, the theatre, the music and all this. And what disappointed me about Namasagali was, our headmaster, Father Grimes, tries to create this kind of like a wonderland in the middle of nowhere. And all we were just interested in, at least many of my classmates, just the drinking. I said, but people, how about the production, the artistic side of it?
There was an artistic side.
Yes, there was a serious artistic side. This all-round thing.
Just even the confidence.
Exactly, the confidence. Yes, and all these things that have now become mainstream in Uganda, the miming competition, the karaoke's, the idea, like the Watoto Church, Christmas cantant and whatnot. All this, that's now the standard of Uganda, in which the arts, the entertainment, the music is central to Uganda. It's no longer just that you had to go to school, get some professional degree in accounting, management and whatnot. But even entertainment can be a profession, can be a calling, can be a career. Video, influencing, all this was anticipated 40 years ago by Namasagali College. So, well, of course, it's a long story about what happened in the school, but that's what it was.
Were you there for A-levels?
A-level, yes.
A-levels. And when you left, or while you were there, did you already know what you wanted to do, where you were heading?
You don't always know what you want to do, but just to give you an example of how the past becomes the future. When I was in Namasagali, we had ministries. We had prefects. Then we had like a judiciary, much like the structure of government. We had ministers, we had a judiciary, and then we had like a cabinet ministry. So in ministry, I was asked to be the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Information.
Oh, okay.
Who was the Minister of Information? Conrad Nkutu. Who was then after Conrad Nkutu left, who became his successor? Robert Kapushenga. So one day when Conrad Nkutu is the managing director of the Daily Monitor and Robert Kapushenga is MD of New Vision, I said, people, Namassagali's Minister of Information brought to the national stage to run Uganda's main national papers. How weird does life get?
Okay.
Just imagine, let's say if you're in, let's say, a school like a mixed school like King's College, Buddha, or Makerere College School, and there was a judiciary, and then so-and-so was the Chief Justice, and the other was the Deputy Chief Justice, Principal Judge, and then real-time the three people
20 years later.
as the Chief Justice of Uganda, Deputy Chief Justice, I don't know, head of the commercial court and whatnot.
I don't know how many people in entertainment now were the entertainment prefects when they were in school.
Exactly. And then one after the ours was just unique in the sense of one after the other. So I started saying, Robert, can you believe it? The managing director of the Vision Group, the monitor MD Conrad Nkutu, I in the New Vision, basically Namasagali class of whichever year, 87, 86, were planted into the mainstream media.
Yeah.
So to restate it, listen carefully to children, listen to that banter among children, listen to I want to be a pilot, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer, listen to that, and when they speak before they're inhibited and the conventional societies get the better of them, allow that plant to go where it says it's going. Just that.
Very important.
Just that.
Very important.
We come pre-programmed into this world.
Okay. So what was your first job? Were you already working before you left school? Or?
No, at the time we left university, Makerere University in the early 1990s, Uganda wasn't what it was today. This was a time, well, maybe you might not remember, but very difficult days when, yes, we're just the Museveni government had just taken power, but there was this period of about 4 or 5 years in which there was just nothing happening. When none of the life you know today, the branded beers, sodas, radio stations, all this was there. So when we left university, essentially what they said was, out in the streets you go, start scrambling around for jobs. So I had no job when I left university, like many people. And then in that period of unemployment, basically the first 2 years, I began listening, for lack of anything else to do, to BBC day in, day out, and reading complex encyclopedias which my dad had at home, but which of course I'd been too young to understand then.
What
So
was your parents' background?
my dad was a vet and my mom was a teacher. She taught many of today's MDs
Ah,
and all this and such
okay,
and everything,
okay.
yes. So I began reading avidly, in depth, and listened to BBC in depth. Now the shock to me was, and I think the embarrassment I still feel today, I learned more, and I've learned more since leaving university than all the years I was at school. I just don't understand this. And I think, to be honest with you, I learned more in life, more serious information, knowledge, facts. It's now 2019, more in the last 11 years since 2008 than my entire life put together.
Is
That's
that because you've been like deliberately looking for this information,
partly, but
or?
yes, but looking back, when I think, I just say, what did we do at school? What did we do at university? In other words, the more, especially now reading like online, the amount of information, the technical information about everything from photography to fashion to whatever, even then watching TV lately, that's become a new obsession. Even channels I normally wouldn't be associated with, like the Fashion One TV channel, the technical language of fashion and all this. I just realized that, interestingly, the true knowledge that sustains me today, that I am today, is really just many years after university. So I don't know what to answer to a person about the question of, is it our degrees or certificates or diplomas that make us, or is it this continuous learning?
I think you have a point, because I did mass communication. I majored in broadcasting, but I was already working on radio.
Yes.
And apart from the basic principles of journalism, throughout the years, I can't really say what helped me in my job, which was exactly what I was doing.
Yes.
So,
It's very interesting. There was a BBC program about, I think, 7 or 8 years ago, or one of these end of year discussions. So there was a man called Chris Anderson of this tech magazine called Wired, who talked about technology and the digital revolution advancing so fast that before you've gotten used to the iPhone 6, there comes 7. Before you've put your hands on 7, there comes 8. Before we have begun getting a grip on Instagram's current algorithm, there's a change by Facebook, and then now it's no longer just, they've changed the order of the posts and whatnot. So because of the constant changing all across the world, he says we're going to remain as a society in permanent beta, B-E-T-A, permanent change. In other words, you can no longer say I did mass comm or I did medicine. Everything's changing so fast. You can't say you did computer science at university when now we're going on to 3G, then 4G, then 5G internet. In other words, the person of the future is going to be in constant learning mode. We will be in constant, as in trial mode. We will never really be educated. We shall constantly have to be reading and understanding, because think of the people who were specialists in Windows 95 or Windows 98, how so long ago that sounds. Think of you remember was it Encarta Encyclopedia by Microsoft? Think of the days of CD-ROMs and whatnot and such. So that's
floppy disks.
floppy disks and all this. Just to think, even recently, I mean, now even the flash drives, giving way to the external hard drives and all that. So that's what become the truth. Truth be told, the me that I am today is not even Namaskar. It's not Makere. It's not primary school. It's more like it's more this constant reading of the last 10, 15 years. Well, of course, they're the basic principles of grammar. If you skip that, then of course you skip that. The basic sense of what's appropriate, how to address people. You've noticed many people today, even university graduates, can't write formal letters.
They can't.
Just how to write a formal application letter, how to end it, how to see the difference between writing to somebody, the formal, the informal, the subject matter, the date.
But even just an understanding of who they are, being able, one of the basic questions, tell me about yourself. I find that so many people are challenged. They don't know. They'll tell you where they were born, they'll tell you all these things, but they won't tell you who they are as a person.
Really, yes. That's what it is. So, but the rest of it will be constant learning, constant reading. Yes. Now that you mentioned this, we are kind of facing danger in Uganda. We've seen an expansion of education, the formal classroom education, but the quality has much reduced. I'm sure you can testify to this. People just can't see things. Basic grammar, punctuation, and then...
And there's a challenge. You have graduates who, for the first 2 years in a job, are learning how to just be, I mean, at least
how to
at the basic
how to be
level,
what they
being
should have
able
been
to.
at all level, yes. And then it began off with this casualness of social media. Everybody's like, yeah, but this is just text, this is just social media, this is just SMS. It's now gradually made its way into the mainstream newspapers, the print newspapers, business signposts, government documents, legal documents. Like the president said in January 2017 when he was launching his new edition of the Sowing the Mustard Seed, his memoirs, saying, I'm the president and my aides bring me these letters to sign at State House, and I spend half the time just going through all this grammar, correcting basic primary school S1, S2 English.
Yeah.
So yes, that's what's happened to Uganda. Overall, the last 25 years, it's been expansion of quantity, reduction of quality or inconsistency of quality, yes.
True.
That's the word again.
Okay, so you said those 2 years you had this fascination with encyclopedias and knowledge.
Yes, because the BBC, the top of the pops and all this, and the way they would express themselves, the BBC is just the limit. The ability to describe, that's very difficult for us as Africans. You're saying people can't describe themselves. Ask anybody, ask the average person, or ask me, anyone. Just ask people to describe, let's say, Donald Trump, the US president, or Princess Diana. Just describe. Don't attack her and don't praise. Just describe.
Describe, yeah.
Very difficult for people to describe. So I learned the ability to describe from these encyclopedias and from the BBC.
Yeah.
This is...
I think that was the greatest storytelling platform
yes,
that has ever
that
been.
ability. And to this day, when I keep urging people, say, people, we receive the BBC here, it's free of charge, the world service. That precision of the definition. This is Beyonce. Beyonce is, and the words that follow. What's she? This is so and so. The ability to explain, there's a Bangladeshi friend in America who explains software coding. He said it's all about turning reality into abstraction. And I think that's what the world of storytelling is about. How to get what we know and codify it in words. This is so and so, she is, she does, and the precision with which we explain that.
Okay.
You've noticed many photographers just put up pictures, or many of us put up pictures, haha, this is me at the beach. But to describe the scene, the background, the context.
A lot of people struggle with that. Like,
exactly.
What do you put in the caption?
What do you explain? Yes. How do you explain what was going on? How do you draw us into the story beyond the video or the photo, and just make us want to own and belong to the story? This is me, and it's important because there was sort of this child, a child who did ABC. 5 years later, she went on to become this and this, so that's significant. And all that background. The Europeans are masters at that. Yes, National Geographic, that ability to narrow down to an animal and almost describe the personality of the animal.
Yes.
The cheetah does this and that, and there she goes with her cubs, she does ABC and all this.
We have a long way to go.
Oh yes.